Hello and welcome to Art 13131. We're in week 2 still, and we're going to talk about assignment number 5. And this is an upside down drawing. It isn't an upside down drawing of anything. I'm providing the image to draw upside down. So you will get that image, place it upside down, and draw it upside down. Okay? This is supposedly working the right side of the brain as opposed to the left side of the brain. And there's a handout that I'm providing for that as well. And we're going to take a look at that now. So on the course page, the home page, you'll see syllabus over here on the left sidebar. Click on that, and that's where I put all handouts that I'm putting out for this semester. Okay. So syllabus is there, the weekly assignment schedule is there, the upside down drawing is there, and also the left and right side of the brain breakdown is there as well. So if you click on that, I'll show you here. Here, you'll see this upside down drawing provided. So what you're going to do is, it's a guy sitting in a chair, right? There's no shading to this one. This is about the only assignment we're not going to shade. We're just going to draw the lines, the contour lines they call it. Is basically outlining this man sitting in a chair. Well, you're going to print this out, or if you can turn it upside down on your computer, fine. But I would say print it out and turn it upside down, and then draw it upside down. So your drawing is going to be upside down because that's working the right side of the brain. It's said that you're not noticing, your subconscious is picking up the image. So it's not noticing that it's the guy as much sitting in a chair as much of as a bunch of lines that just sort of connect to each other like a map or a puzzle. And you're going to map out those shapes and draw it upside down. Okay. And if I can find let's see. Um, I think I took it out. Oh well. Anyway, the breakdown is right here. And so you will look at that. Let me see if I got a flash drive for that. So hang on a minute. Should have prepared a little more. It's okay. I got it here. Okay. So, um, just got lost somewhere. Okay. Well, darn it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, sorry. Right side of the brain, left side of the brain. Okay. Left side's more verbal, right side non-verbal. Okay. Analytic and synthetic. And it goes on and on. You can read these, and this is the difference. Digital, spatial, see, intuitive on the right, logical on the left. Uh, so you can read these, and this is perceived what the right side of the brain is about and functions, and the left side of the brain functions. So with drawing this upside down guy in a chair, you're working the right side of the brain. Okay, so it's just a fun exercise. The outcome is not as important as the process. Process is that you place this upside down and draw it upside down and see how it turns out. Okay? Don't cheat because it doesn't matter how it turns out. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be totally representational of the actual, you're going to get very close to it, believe me. But, if it's too perfect, I may wonder if you cheated. But do it anyway and submit that one to that assignment, and then that'll be done with that. But what you want to make sure is that you spaced it out correctly so that you don't run off the page. Probably going to start somewhere like turning it upside down and start at the head or the legs here in the chair, and then work your way down, adding each little section as you go. And try not to leave any of these little lines out. And pretty soon you'll have the head, but you do want probably the head more than the legs if you're going to run off the page with something. You'd rather have the head complete than than this part. Maybe that could run off if you ran off your page because you didn't map it or get the proportions exactly right. But it's a good exercise. It's fun, and it's a interesting experiment. Okay, so that's really all it is. But do your best with that. Upside down drawing. Place that upside down and draw it upside down. Okay. Let's go back here and look at the assignment schedule. And number 9, oops, sorry, number 6 is to draw your own feet. So you're going to draw your own feet. Now, if you are subconscious, if you'd rather not self-conscious about drawing your own feet and passing that image along to me, then draw some other pair of feet. Okay. You want to be looking at some feet, whether they're a photo of feet or somebody's real feet. Yours, preferably. If you don't want to do that, use somebody else's. Okay, that's fine. But you want to look at someone's feet in a light source. You want a certain light source from the left to the right, like I was speaking about in the kitchen items. Still life. Well, this is basically a still life as well, but it's your feet or someone else's feet. Okay. You want to create the shadow area and the lit up area and core uh, the core area, just like in the video about the apple, shading the apple. The same thing applies to all these shading. So feet are basically rounded. The toes and the foot are rounded. So you want to draw your feet. Now, I'm saying feet. Feet means 2 feet, right? 2 feet together as they appear in a photograph or how you're looking at them in any position, but you want them together and you want 2 feet. Now, I'm going to say this over and over because more than not, students will send me a drawing of 1 foot. Right here it says draw your own feet. Feet means 2 feet. And then I have to go back to them and say, hey, feet means 2 feet. So put the other foot in there now so that I can have 2 feet in the drawing rather than just a foot. So you want 2 feet. Don't forget that. If you didn't draw 2 feet, you just read this and didn't watch the video. Because I'm saying it right here, big time, over and over. You want to draw 2 feet. Your 2 feet or someone else's 2 feet, a photo of 2 feet you're going to draw and shade 2 feet together. Okay. Another thing you want to watch out for is drawing border lines around the toes and the foot, because there really are no border lines around the toes and the foot. I'm going to show you, let's show these images here. See, there's no border line around any of this. It's just that shading meets the background. So that shading stops at a certain place, right? And the background comes in. And so there's your line. It's a perceived border, but no line, no actual written line. Like with the tip of your pencil, you're not writing that like that. You're not making a line around it. this looks like a line right here, and maybe it is, but I'd rather you just, if they didn't really need that. Over here, they don't have it. Try to get away from using lines because they're really not on your feet. There's no border line around the edge of your foot. It's just that shading, that whatever tint and shade that is, it it ends at a certain point, and then the background begins, and that's where the edge is perceived. That's how it's defined. So try not to make lines on your foot drawing. Notice all the shading. In between the toes, it's darker. On the side of the toes, a little darker. The top of the foot is a little lighter than the sides. Where you have the ankle bone, it's shaded in there, and then you have the lit up part where it catches the light. Same with the ankle, or the heel, and around all the toes. Even the toenails are shaded. Even the toenails are shaded, okay? So don't forget all that. Here's another sort of example. We got little hairs on there, okay? Those are sort of like lines, but it's not a border line around everything. Don't do the borderline thing. Don't do a borderline around the toenails. It's shading. There's very light shading in the middle, and then it gets darker to the edge where it connects with the skin. And then that's dark in there, and it is a thin area, but it's not like a line. Not like drawing a line there to border it. And certainly where it hits the back of the toe, back to the toenail and the skin, there's no line there. It's just that shading meets that shading. That shading is a little darker than that shading. So they separate themselves and they define a border or an edge or a place where one thing met another without a line. There's no lines around all these veins and stuff either. These are just light and dark areas. Light, dark, mid-tone, mid-tone, light, dark, but all the way around this. So you got to notice that in your drawing, what you're looking at to draw. Notice the light and dark areas, and then start shading them in. Very, very smoothly, because skin is basically smooth. It's not scratchy. I don't want to see scratchy lines with the tip of the pencil. Scratchy, 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 because that's going to make a texture. You want to smoothly shade with the side of your pencil in the broad section of the graphite so that it makes a broad shading surface, just like you practiced on the apple and the boxes, the shaded boxes that change from very light to very dark in a progression. You want to shade like that, very smooth. Now, you can take a smudging tool, you can buy one, or you can make one out of a Q-tip, or you can use a rag over your finger or your finger to actually rub the graphite, and it'll blend it a little bit better and get rid of some of the scratchy lines. You certainly don't want to be using the tip of your pencil for any of this. Okay? Maybe to gesture draw what you're going to draw first, and then start shading to get rid of the gestured line. The gesture line is very, very light. You're not gonna draw dark on that, so you don't have to erase it out if you use the right shading. Maybe you do have to erase it out. You want to be able to do that, not a dark line that's hard to erase. You want very light lines if you're going to do a gesture drawing of the foot first, which I suggest, and then start shading where all the light and dark is. On the toenails, in between the toes, around the toes, on the tops of the toes is lighter than in between. Top of the foot and then top of everything is lighter than where it curves around. Wherever it curves around, that's taking the light away. The light is not shining on that part of the foot or the feet as much. So there's not as much lit up tint or shade. All right, you want to create all of that. That's what's going to give you your three-dimensional appearance on your two-dimensional plane. All this shading and contrast. Without that, it's going to look flat. And I'll show you some examples of flat looking feet. That's this with just lines, or this with hardly any shading. This one's a little better. All these are shaded pretty well. That's good. This is shaded. That's shaded. That's one of the images I showed, and it's shaded. This could use a little more, but it's okay. It's okay. Now, stuff like this is just lines, right? And this has very little shading here, so it's not creating as much of an appearance, a three-dimensional appearance. The more shading you put in, like this one, compared to this one, this has more shape. It has more presence. This is kind of washed out and not as much presence. Now you can see all kinds of images of feet in here. We're not going to draw the ones with lines around them. That we can start off that way with a very thin, light line for gesture drawing, but otherwise, don't leave it that way. Don't leave a line around your foot for borders. And you can look at all these, and this is a really good one here too. And it goes on and on and on, where you can find all kind of images of feet. And it's really just the light and dark shading that brings all of this out. I mean, that really, break it down. That's all you're doing is darkening up this area and leaving this light, maybe erasing out some tone right here if you put too much in. But the rest of it is just shaded with light and dark areas that all meet up somehow together. Okay, now this foot is kind of strange, this drawing. You have, this one's not very shaded, right? And this one's shaded a little better. So it's very strange why they look like they're separate drawings. Don't do that. Don't leave the toes void of shading. You want to shade them, all the toes in between and around the ankle, the heel, everything. Okay? So I can't emphasize enough about the shading and dark contrasts with light. Contrast, between light, the difference, the big differences between the light and the dark. That's going to bring out your three-dimensional um, appearance to everything. All kind of different positions, right? And all the veins and everything, and all the muscle structure and the shape of the toes are all defined by shading, light and dark and midtones. So typically after you're done, you're going to have like 5 to 7, I say, levels of tone. That's why you practice doing that. From very, very light, holding the pencil on the side, overhand grip, side of the pencil, and pressing very lightly for the very light tones. Then the harder you press, the darker the tones come out, depending on the pencil you're using. I suggested getting the soft graphite, which is the higher numbers, 05 to 08 or HB, sometimes they're called. And those get the darker tones. And you really want to get a pencil that'll get almost a black tone when you press hard. And then you press lightly, it'll go back to all those light, light, light tones. You don't really need a light, hard graphite pencil. All the soft graphite can work for this. All right. So remember to draw 2 feet together, not 1 foot. Shade your feet, and show all the dimension, all the 3 dimension of this foot, or your both feet together, with all the contrast of light and dark and your midtones. Okay, let's leave it there, and we'll talk with you next week.